Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome to this latest webcast that we're bringing you from Travel Weekly as part of our continued Roadmap to Recovery series, even into this new year, 2021. But I'm delighted today to be joined by Julia Lo Bue-Said, who is, of course, the Chief Executive of the Advantage Travel Partnership. And Julia, you are celebrating 25 years at Advantage, which is a fantastic milestone. And we're just delighted that you've come to talk to us today all about your time at the consortium, but also looking ahead as well, because we're obviously now hoping for a much better year for your members and for the entire industry. But should we start with where it all began? Let's go back. Tell us how you first got into travel.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Lucy. I can't believe when you say 25 years out loud, it sounds so long, such a long time. But 25 years actually, even in the same business, so much has changed. And I knew from a very early age, I suppose, like we all did, that we wanted to be in the travel industry. And I started in WH Smith Travel. So I expect a lot of your viewers are not old enough to know, but WH Smith Travel used to have travel agents. So I didn't work in the book part, but I certainly worked in the travel agency side in a shopping centre. And I started there, and I did a few years with WH Smith Travel until they were acquired by AT who, again, a lot of your viewers may not be old enough, but they were then acquired obviously by Thomas Cook. And it then took me into tour operating. So from there, I went to the Best Travel Group, who ran Greece and Cypriana tour operator. They were in their day the largest tour operator to Greece and Cyprus. Had a fantastic time there. Worked with industry veterans such as Hugh Morgan and Tom Konopek, and actually it was Tom who then brought me over to Balkan Holidays after he left Greece a little while later. And from there, I got an introduction to the late Ron Muir, who was the MD at the time of what was NAITA. And I suppose the rest is history, really. So
I remember this, which you're now getting into the realms of where I remember. But NAITA, of course, was the National Independent Association of Travel Agents. Is that right?
National Independent Travel Agents.
Okay. Yeah. And so what job so you met Ron and he saw something in you and brought you into the consortium. And so describe what you were doing in your early days, because it was, like you say, things have changed so much. But what were your first sort of tasks and roles and responsibilities?
Yeah, God, I actually remember it like it was yesterday. And I started off as a commercial exec. I think I came in as so my role there was obviously working alongside the team to look at how we can support our members with commercial activity. So I suppose my lifeblood, my whole career, I guess, in Advantage up until the last sort of 5-6 years was always in that commercial area. And that's where, kind of, I suppose, my passion for the business came. So, obviously responsible for putting in place a lot of the agreements that we have that are historical now for the organisations, the TUI of the days, the first choice of the days and their tours and such like. So, yeah, that was my first role.
Did you always work on leisure, Julia, or were you also working on the business side all the way through?
So in those days, it was leisure, and our business travel arm didn't really start till a few years later. So that kind of came about a bit later. But my background was leisure. I came in and was driving leisure. It was really only the last 10 years that I've kind of been more involved in business travel. And obviously latterly building the kind of global business travel strategy and delivering that for not only our UK members, but also our global members as well.
Okay. And give us an idea of the size of Advantage at that time and, how it's grown over the years.
God, yeah. So when back in the days, if you like, we were, a couple of hundred strong, a couple of hundred members. We've grown the organisation now to over 700 members, and that's business and leisure. And to give it some context, pre-pandemic, in terms of turnover, it's around 4.5 billion. 4.5 billion, puts us, way above, most other organisations in terms of leisure, retail, and business travel. Around 50% of that is business travel. So, business travel is by far, from a turnover perspective, the largest part of the group. And it's interesting because it's never been something we've been, I think, known for. I think, Advantage has always been known for leisure, but actually business travel has been one of those quiet areas of the business where it's only really started to come into its own over the last few years. And obviously we brought on Ken McLeod, who many of you will know, who really drove that forward. So But yeah, no, the last 10 years of business travel has been a phenomenal time, and we've really grown it now into the UK's largest consortium of independent business travel, TMC. So really pleased at what we've done there.
Yeah, you should be very, very proud of that. I mean, it's a staggering turnover and it's a big responsibility. So perhaps bring us up to speed with how you then took over. I know you had these commercial roles, and we met when you were probably leisure director or you were commercial director, but then obviously you became the MD. So tell us about that.
It's interesting. I've said to quite a few, I think I've actually told the story to quite a few of my members at the time, but if I'd have known then what I knew now and what it meant, I'm not sure I'd have really gone for it, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm really pleased I did, to be fair, but I think, taking that step is so different, and, it's not just a title, it's everything that goes with it. And I'm not sure I was really prepared for that. So I think stepping up into a completely different role in different responsibilities, and actually your outlook and how you make decisions more so is so different to when you're making operational decisions. And I hadn't appreciated it. I think I felt at the time, and I did go for the role and applied for it and was obviously successful. But I think at the time I felt it'd be an easy transition. But it's been a huge learning curve, trying to, learning everything from, governance of, being in an organisation of this and everything that goes with that, to, your stakeholders and how you suddenly have to, how you're engaging with different stakeholders that you probably never come across before. So it's been a real learning curve. But the great thing, Lucy, and I know a lot of people say this, but genuinely mean that, the team at Advantage and the people are what make it. I mean, it really actually,
well, a lot of them have been there a while. So I guess even though you stepped up into that new role, you did have some people around you that had been there a while and you could rely on and trust.
Absolutely right, and that's so important. A lot of, as you say, a lot of the team have got a long tenure with the organisation, and I always be the first. My team will always tell you I'll be the first one to say that no matter how long I've been in the organisation, it doesn't mean I don't want to change. I'm the first one to want to change, and I think that's really important, because otherwise you're going to lose your sparkle. You're going to lose your innovation and that entrepreneurial spirit. You've got to want to change and adapt, and that's one thing I feel the organisation, certainly over the last sort of 5-6 years, has really done. We've stepped up into even pre-pandemic, we've stepped up into a world that is very different and very challenging for our members. If you think about, we've gone through the days of OTAs to direct sale, all that stuff that we used to talk about, brochures we used to talk about years ago. Well, actually now they're almost irrelevant. It's part of the world that you need to work in. So, we've certainly stepped up in terms of making sure that we can provide our members all the tools and products that they need to be as competitive as they can in a really tough marketplace.
Well, I think you've definitely done that. But let's talk about perhaps what you consider to be some of the key milestones for the organisation or personal achievements, things that you've led. I mean, for example, you changed the name from, I know we talked about it changing from NAITA and then to Advantage, but it's now the Advantage Travel Partnership, and that's quite significant, isn't it? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so when we looked at actually how do we, a number of years back, we looked at actually what does the organisation stand for? How do we make sure? How can we help our members leverage the brand but keep hold of their own brand? Because that in a lot of communities is really important. But we know that being able to be part of a bigger organisation to showcase that you're part of a bigger group can deliver really significant benefits for the consumer. So if you take last year going through the pandemic, when we were able to really leverage our brand and really leverage our profile, all of a sudden, our members and the brand could resonate with each other. And the way we position it is actually you're part of it. You're part of our group, you're a partner as part of the partnership. So it went from Advantage Travel Centres, which may seem really a very minor change, to the Advantage Travel Partnership, and it's all about that. It's about partners together, whether you're a member using the brand or a partner, a business partner wanting to work with us and be associated with that brand as well.
Yeah, and I know you were instrumental, weren't you, Julia, in appointing the first non-exec director, someone to really help you, Stephen Easom. And why was that so important, and what has he helped you to achieve there?
Yeah, the organisation was going through a real change in positioning, but also in terms of its activity. So, if you think of traditional membership organisations, they unfortunately can have quite a stuffy connotation to them. I think people look at them and think, well, actually, they're not very commercial, but actually, advantage is, and we are, we're owned by the members, we're there for the members, but we have to drive a commercial business, or we're not going to be able to benefit them. And being able to bring somebody in that could help steer the ship, could help and enable us to think about areas of the business we hadn't developed before. And actually, Stephen came with a wealth of retail experience and business experience, which really helped from a governance perspective in terms of the board structure. So it was the right time for the business, and actually he's been instrumental and a real support to me over the last number of years as well.
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's we've skipped a bit. I forgot to ask you about when the Super Consortium was formed. That's a few years ago now, but obviously Advantage are out on it on your own now, and you're doing really well. But you were involved, weren't you, at when all the consortia sort of tried to come together in this sort of triumvirate? So what was all that? How did that unfold, and what were your views at the time?
Yeah, so I think if you asked any of those involved in that organisation at the time, we'd all probably say it'd be one of those things that you want to forget. However, it was also one of those things that at the time was absolutely the right thing to do. And it was a time when, I'm going to have to remember my timings now, but it was a time when I think TUI were reducing commission, independent agents were being marginalised. And the concept of coming together and being a superpower and really there to support the travel agency community was absolutely the right thing at the right time.
You needed strength in numbers to fight the sort of bigger guys that were perhaps putting pressure on you.
Absolutely.
But why did it? So it was right at the time, but it didn't really last. So why do you think it didn't really stand the test of time?
I think the challenge you always have when you've got, three trying to be one, three can never be one. So, I suppose without going into all the politics of the time, it just doesn't work. And I think different motivations, different views on the way forwards kind of, probably stopped it from getting it to the next point. But it was instrumental in giving us that positioning to move forward from. It kind of gave us that springboard to then take the organisation to the next level. Everyone had benefited, the members had benefited, because we did drive incremental growth, we did drive incremental earnings to the members. So I think from that point of view, we were then able to springboard on the back of that.
Yeah, and I think actually it wasn't long after that you started to do your preferred supplier status, and so I think you did get more power, and you found a way to get perhaps more respect from tour operators by creating these lists and having more of a partnership.
Yeah, and I think you can't go through that without learning actually what your competitors are doing and how they do it, and so you're able to then take all the good stuff that you learned and bundle it all together and come out of it the other side. So I think all these things, I think the problem we've then got, if we don't try something, we'll never know. And there's always a risk in membership, particularly, I think every organisation, but in a membership organisation, there's always a risk that you don't want to do it just in case someone doesn't like it or it doesn't work for somebody. Yeah. You definitely can't please everybody, and I just don't believe you can stand still. You have to try, or you just don't know. And you know what? So long as you learn along the process, whether or not you want to repeat something or not, then I think there's always it's always worth doing.
Yeah, got to try these things. Anything else that sticks in your mind as things that you perhaps didn't go as you wanted them to, or just everything is a high and a low, isn't it? So is there anything else that you would?
I think that there have been so many. I think back to kind of a lot of the new initiatives we launched. Not long after I was promoted into MD, we, as part of the repositioning of the brand, which you mentioned, and we also launched Vision 2020. Now, Vision 2020 at the time was really about taking the organisation to the next step, but in an ambitious way. And one of the things that we hadn't done as an organisation before, and it might sound quite trivial, is we were never transparent with our kind of performance indicators. We were never transparent about, this is what we're going to achieve, and do you know what, we're going to do it. If we don't do it, we'll tell you. There was always a bit of, I mean, I use this word, it's very non-technical, fluff, you know, and my team know that. I always talk about, I'm not interested in fluff, but there was a lot of fluff, and for the right reasons at the time. But we were then coming out saying, actually, we are going to drive this organisation forward, but we've got to be really transparent with what our metrics are going to be. And it was the first time the organisation was able to lift its head above the parapet and say, yeah, we are going to push forward on this. And every quarter we'd report back. So every quarter to the members, the shareholders, we would report back. But there's been great things, you know, the last 4 or 5 years, other than last year, we paid out dividends to members. And whilst it's not going to change everyone's life in terms of the numbers we pay out, you know, actually that's an indication that the business has been driven profitably and well, and therefore we're able to reward our members over and above all the other incremental benefits that they are given, you know, as
yeah. Well, that's not to be sniffed at. It's quite nice to have a payout. A dividend is lovely.
Absolutely right. I think also if I think about conferences, Lucy, you know, the Advantage conferences have always been a really big part of.
I was going to come on to that. Legendary, I'd say, some of them. I mean, honestly, Julia, I think one that sticks in my mind was when Nando Parado spoke at one of your conferences. This is the guy that walked out of the Andes after a plane crash. You've probably seen the film Alive, but it still sends. I'm talking about it and it makes me tingle. It's like shivers. So.
But I remember seeing you, Lucy, and with obviously with Trevor, with your dad there. I remember it. I remember seeing that, and I remember coming out of that auditorium, and I could not believe it. And it's very difficult to articulate it unless you're there. Everybody had, you know, everybody was tearful. Everybody. And I think, you know, they were the sorts of experiences that we could bring to people. I'm not saying, you know, you want everyone in tears all the time, but actually it was a moment of self-reflection, and we all did a lot of that, I think, last year. You know, obviously, you know, difficult year, and we're still not out of the woods yet. But it was a moment of reflection that we could all be there together and all experience that. And that, for me, is what the Advantage conferences also gave us all. It gave us all a lovely weekend away in some beautiful places. But it gave us all the opportunity to reflect on us as individuals, but also as business leaders and, you know, employees and owners, a chance how we could do things better. And being able to come out of the conference knowing that, you know, I've learned these few snippets. This is what I'm going to impart when I get back, and this is how I'm going to develop the business. That is what we were trying to achieve.
Yeah, and you've had some. I mean, we mentioned Nando Parado, but there's been some fantastic other speakers. I mean, even more recently, Chris Hoy, I should say. But who else has really stuck in your mind as being, you know, some fantastic inspirational, motivational speakers that you've had for the members?
Oh wow, there've been so many. I mean, Chris Hoy was amazing. I mean, he's a lovely man as well, which also helped. But you know, we took him out to dinner along with a number of delegates who'd won competitions for conference. And again, these are moments of you know, these are individuals that will experience something that money will never buy. You know, the chances of being invited and hosted out to dinner with Chris Hall,
with an Olympian,
really. So lots of amazing. Joanna Lumley, I mean, she was one of my favourites. She was just incredible. So, and we forget this. We forget how privileged we are to be part of this industry. And you know, I'm so proud that we've been able to give so many people such amazing memories just from our conferences. And
do you think we'll be able to go on are you planning to have the conference this year now? I mean, obviously everyone had to miss a year last year, but
I think this year we are just all, you know, like everything else, aren't we? I think we're all just having to be as agile in our thinking as possible, and taking each kind of month as it comes, and let's see what happens. Really, I think it's very difficult to plan into the future right now, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're talking about some of the highs, and another thing that you've introduced is your big celebration lunch. Which has been a great initiative, really good fun, and obviously, but the real reason, obviously, is to reward people. So tell us where that idea came from, and because it's growing, isn't it? It's a big event.
Yeah, no, it's growing, and it's been fantastic and so well received. And you know, when before we had the big celebration lunch, you know, we were thinking about actually what are those activities that we do that really rewards all the great stuff. Yes, we have conference, and yes, you have dinners. But you know, we're not celebrating. We don't spend enough time looking at all the highs and celebrating those highs. And genuinely, that's what it was all about. It was about trying to get our business partners and our members together, and spend we do it on a Friday afternoon in September, spend an afternoon just celebrating the successes that we've achieved, and awarding some great awards to individuals that have been recognised for their achievements. So it's back to people, isn't it? It's back to recognising the amazing stars that we have right across the membership and across the business partner network.
Yeah, absolutely. But you yourself, as an organisation, have won some great accolades recently. I mean, I've got them here. You've got the One to Watch status by Best Company, the Sunday Times, and then also named as one of the London Stock Exchange 1,000 companies to inspire Britain. So, I mean, they're not small awards, Julia. They are fantastic accolades for the consortium. So you must have been very proud.
Very proud, very proud. I think, we do our jobs and we do the best we can, but when you do get some recognition publicly and by those sorts of institutions, it means a huge amount, huge amount to me, to the team, and hopefully to all the members as well.
Oh, I'm sure it does. Well, look, we've glossed it. We've talked about it a couple of times about the pandemic and last year. I mean, leading a business through that, for anyone must have just been, and as you say, we're not out of the woods, it's still ongoing. But last year, I mean, you would have known nothing like it before, and that must have been so hard as a leader of the business to do that. But I mean, Julia, lots of people were obviously very vocal about it, but I would say you more than ever really put yourself out there. You were on television, you were really trying to get across the plight of the travel agent community in particular. How do you feel? I mean, what was it like leading through that kind of sort of crisis?
Yeah, I've said if I had the time and I had the competence to, I'd love to write a book about it, because I think leading through a pandemic is, I don't ever want to do it again, and I don't think anybody chooses to. But oh my God, really tough, really tough. And I think just all of a sudden you're on this adrenaline rush. It starts off with being disbelief, but then all of a sudden you're realizing that, this is not going to end quickly. This is not a 1 week, 2 week, a month, a couple of months. And if I think back at the beginning, we all thought, oh, by the summer it'll all be over. And, thank God, summer holidays can take place. But little did we know that, obviously, the whole year was affected. So it's really difficult, really, really tough. And I think the key things for me were, you had to make, and we still have to make, really quick decisions. And actually, when we're all taught making quick decisions is not necessarily the right thing to do. In your business schooling, in your business life, you've got to reflect. You need to, yes, you don't procrastinate, but you need time to reflect. You need time to consult. But actually, last year was just not possible. You had to make very quick decisions. And, a lot of those decisions were based on people's lives and based on people. And that was tough, really, really.
That's just it, because there's the commercial, the business side of it, but there's the human side, because you're, I guess, responsible for, whatever you said there, 700 members. I mean, it's a lot of people. It must have been very emotional at times.
Oh, hugely emotionally. I mean, I can't pretend that I haven't shed a tear. My team have seen it. I've been on staff calls and I couldn't, I lost it. I wasn't able to, hold it together, because it's just too overwhelming. And I think that's the point. It was so overwhelming. And we can all, I like to think, kind of, growing up in my business career, I've got broad enough shoulders. But actually, when you're all of a sudden, you've got your people, your team, you've got your members, you've got your suppliers, and then you've got you're in the media, being kind of media spotlight, and actually all of a sudden there's different pressures that are coming at you from different ends. It's really overwhelming. But I think we've all learned so much. I think we'll continue to, and I think it has changed how we are as business leaders. I've changed, and I know all the things that I thought were important before they're really not important. And I think for this year, they'll continue to not be important. And it's really difficult to stay focused on the priorities. And that's what we have to do.
So talk about that then. We're talking about this year ahead. I mean, everyone is sort of hoping it's going to be a brighter year with news of the vaccine, obviously, and that's being rolled out. But what are your sort of hopes and aspirations? What are your key focuses then? If you're saying the old Julia, the old leader, is probably, you know, she's not coming back for a while. You need to be in this new guise for another year at least. What should we expect from you and from Advantage, and what are you hoping for from the industry?
I think the key things for me are, you know, from an Advantage point of view, we will stay completely focused on our core business. You know, so I talked about the fluff before. That fluff is gone. That's not coming back. And unfortunately, that means even for some of our members, some of the services that they were receiving, you know, I'm not going to be able to bring those back. So it's about core activity. It's about making sure we can support our members through this. It's staying really focused on revenue generation. So I'm talking for our members. So how do we support our members through revenue generation?
Sorry, Julie, can you give examples then of the fluffier stuff that would have been nice to do before, but is now not going to have, you know, you're not going to focus on for the time being?
Yeah, so some of the fluffy stuff will be, some of it will be around marketing. So actually our whole, if I look at our whole schedule of marketing activity that we used to produce, we're probably doing around 50% of that right now. So some of that we've stopped. So direct mail activity, well, right now that's really not going to allow us to sell or help us sell our members sell holidays. So we'll park that. That's not going to happen. Some of the membership consultancy services that we used to operate, well, we physically cannot go in and meet members for the obvious reasons right now. So that's not going to happen right now. So we'll reevaluate our services as, you know, as we move through the year, but also making sure that the members know we're here. They may, like everything else, there aren't as many of us anymore, so there are less people in the business, so that in itself presents challenges, but I'm confident we stay really focused on what's important.
And you're focused on, as you say, the bottom line, revenue generation, getting your members through this. Can I ask how many members you lost in the pandemic and going into this new year? Are you significantly smaller, or have you managed to keep as many?
No, from a membership point of view, not significantly smaller. I hate saying it out loud because you never know what's around the corner. In terms of numbers, we've lost 10 members. So in terms of outlets, there's a bit more. So I mean, Shearer's, Wallace Arnold, they were a member. They had a number of branches. So unfortunately, we lost those last year. But in terms of companies within the membership, we unfortunately lost 10, and for not all of them went into administration. A number of them closed up. Not up for the fight, or it's just too much. Absolutely right. So I'm fingers crossed that, you know, as we go into the year and as things progressively will get better, because we've got to stay optimistic, then I'm hoping that we can support the members through what will, you know, through the next sort of few months and so.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, losing anyone I know will have really hurt you, and I'm sure, but actually that's a pretty decent figure, isn't it? Like, you know, you've done well, because it's been such a huge crisis for people to cope with. So
absolutely, yeah. And I think what a lot of our agents have done is really just hibernate the business. They've kind of literally belt and braces, locked down as much as they can. Obviously used the government schemes, the furlough, the grants. They've used those to keep the businesses operating, but have worked on a really limited number of staff in the business.
Yeah, and so as they perhaps come out of hibernation, as they start to see some green shoots, or the ones that have continued through it regardless, what advice are you giving them? I mean, are you able to sort of talk about what they should be selling, how they should be selling? What are you sort of saying to your members?
So a big part of our focus that we communicated turn of year, so just before Christmas, was all around, like I said, it's revenue generation. And, you know, typically for independent travel agents, that sometimes doesn't go hand in hand. And I'm being very open here. So what we want to try and do is try to, you know, help our members steer their business to a point where they think about themselves as a business. They're providing a service to their customers. The customer comes first, but it is about their bottom line. It is about how much money they make. It is about who they sell, more importantly, but how they sell it. So how can we help our members, you know, think more commercially? And I'm really, you know, I really want to try and help them in that area, and I think that's really important for us to do, because I think we can help them understand actually the difference it can make to the bottom line. So I talk to my team all the time about, you know, the power of 1%, you know, the difference you can make in cost and revenue. And it's how do we get members to think that way as well, because they can really turn the business around. And agents have had, and actually everybody in the industry, a year of not earning, so got quite a lot of making up to do. How can we help do that with the potentially reduction in customer base that are going to come through the doors?
Yeah, I mean, it's great that you've got such a good, strong strategy, but all the while we've not really been helped by the government. How let down did you feel last year, and even coming into this new year?
Oh, do you know, I still feel really angry. I feel so let down. I could bash my head against the wall. I think the industry's been let down hugely. I really do. I don't think we've been listened to. I don't think anybody, I don't think, from a cabinet point of view, there's anyone fighting our corner. I think as an industry, we've done phenomenally well and collaborated, and there's been lots of different coalitions that have taken place. All doing great stuff, but it's not been enough. And I think the big issue we've got, and became quite evident early on last year, is that we are so fragmented as a travel industry that even I started to talk about travel agents as opposed to travel industry, because it was really difficult to try and get anybody to understand it. So a lot of the infographics that we produced that were printed in national media, it was trying to get.
Helpful, by the way, they were very good.
Thank you, I appreciate that. But it was really there to try and get everyone to understand, if you like, mainstream press to understand this is how travel
agents works and where the money goes up the line and stuff.
And I saw so many times last year where, through the media and the public would be saying, oh, the airports have got bailed out, the airports have had money. And that's how they think about us. So, no, I feel really let down. I think the industry has been hugely let down and not listened to. I think the test and release that we saw, in last month, when that was first released, how that was announced, the mess that they made with that when they announced it on the day they announced it. I think every step of the way, had there been closer collaboration with the industry, then I'm confident we could have helped the government, but also consumers. And we're trades, but actually we're servicing customers who are traveling, and the anxiety and the frustration for them throughout all of this, we were hindered. The industry was hindered in really helping them, and we could have played a much bigger role in supporting customers through these times had the government have worked much closer with us. I mean, I sat on a lot of Whitehall round tables, Lucy, with cabinet and shadow cabinet as well, and really positive dialogue, really good conversations, and yes, they're listening, but actually, where does that go? So yeah, I think out of this, when things calm down, we've really got to rethink how we promote ourselves as an industry, and actually we almost need to come together around the table, all the different stakeholders, different individuals, and think about how do we want to communicate in future.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned how agents could have played a bigger role. Do you share the view that actually once we are fully through this crisis, that agents will become even more important in the booking process, because people will be looking for reassurance and expertise? Do you think actually, although we're not quite there yet, there will be a brighter future for agents?
I really do. I think that if you look today at trying to book a flight and trying to understand what, I try to do it for myself, and we talk about this internally, I can't even sometimes get my head around what we have to do, let alone a consumer. So I think, for consumers now, the tests that they need, kind of post-departure, travel corridors, the FCDO advice, in-resort testing, protocols.
Yeah. It's so confusing.
And actually, Lucy, we've not even talked about Brexit. So I think there is so much that a customer needs to consider and think about now, that, for travel agents and business travel actually can play a huge role in this, to really educate and take the lead and lead their travellers to a point where they can travel very confidently. I think we have a huge role to play.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm conscious of time, Julia, and I know that it's very much a case of here and now, because we've got a lot to do to get through this still. But is there anything you can share with us in terms of your long-term plan for Advantage, even if you can't quite get the wheels in motion just yet because you've got a more immediate job to do? But what would you like to see, or where would you like to see Advantage in perhaps the next couple of years, 5 years' time?
I see, I certainly see Advantage continue to grow, and we've already grown the organisation to make sure that we can represent travel agents in every different model. So it depends on what type, if you're a home worker, if you're a managed service, if you're a traditional agent, business travel, if you need global agents as part of your network, actually we're a one-stop shop. And I see Advantage growing even more as a one-stop shop, being able to deliver a service that is relevant to different agents and business or leisure, depends on where their marketplace is. So I see that growing, and I want Advantage to be the only game in town. That's where I want it to get to, so that any agent in any community is able to join the organisation. But we
just in the UK, you don't have international ambitions?
Well, we do already. So we actually do have Advantage Asia is run by a company called Precol. So that, we already have that. That's based in India at the minute. So, I think the challenges you have is just having the infrastructure. To do it properly, you need the relevant infrastructure in the home home country. So, but I see the brand growing. I see the brand growing to a point where it will be more recognised. But I think it will have to stand for something different. So I think it will have to stand for independence, value, expertise and choice, but actually from a consumer perspective, the consumer understands exactly what that brand means, and that the travel agents carry that brand. So I certainly see our profile continuing, and we have ambitions to drive our PR and our quasi public affairs activity that we've been doing. I see that continue certainly into the rest of this year and beyond, definitely.
You've now got a name. You're a household name on telly yourself, Julia, because you've spent so much time commenting through the pandemic. So you're halfway there. Just before we close, a couple of perhaps more personal questions, but you are without doubt one of the most senior female leaders in the travel industry. That probably comes with, it's good in some ways because there's not many of them, but also I'm sure there are some pressures. I mean, do you feel particularly proud that you've got to where you are, even though you're a woman?
I do. I feel really proud, really proud. And I think all those kind of hang-ups and reservations we have about ourselves, about things we didn't do, things that we've done. I think, I think it all comes with a bit of luck. I think you have to make your own luck, but I think it comes with a bit of luck, and people motivating you and pushing you along the way. I am really proud. I'm really proud, as I said, but I couldn't do it without the team I've got. And I think you need the support at home, you need the support in the office, you need the support with the people you work with. So I think it doesn't come without its frustrations, but I think I am very proud. I'm very proud of what we've achieved as a business.
Yeah, and you mentioned there the support from home, and I know you've done all of this, Julia, while bringing up two fantastic young men. Now they are. I mean, we were both pregnant together with our children at the same time. You've got two lovely boys, and so I mean, are they hugely supportive to you and your husband as well? Are they very supportive?
Oh, they're great. They have their moments. I mean, I think they're so I've got a 20-year-old and like Tom, I've got a now 15-year-old as well. So they're brilliant. They're great, and they are. I'm really proud of them and what they're doing. And their support is brilliant. Although I think when you have boys, they're not as supportive as I think they're great, but they have their moments. And at the end of the day, I'm still mum. So whether I'm leaving,
and I should tell everybody, as well as being the chief executive of the really massive business, you are on the touchline every weekend, aren't you, watching your boys play sport? So you really do a great mum as well as a great businesswoman.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, listen, I think at the end of the day, we're mums first and foremost, aren't we? And that's the part they see. So you then go into kind of work mode, which has been interesting being at home. So yeah.
I know, very keen for that to change. All right, well, listen, we're probably at the end of our time, but we really want to congratulate you, Julia, on your 25 years at Advantage and all the achievements that you have managed to achieve in that time. It's absolutely fantastic, and you seem very strong and positive about the future. So we really wish you the best of luck for this year, for you and all of your members and the rest of your team at Advantage. So congratulations and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Lucy. Thanks very much. Thank you.